we're back again.
The situation is fluid, Mojo. Mojo, the situation is fluid. I'll just edit that part out.
Indeed it is. And I want to thank you again for doing another remote cast. It's all on your shoulders. I sure appreciate it. I'm in my self-isolation, and this is a very welcome respite.
Yeah, we got to do our part to try and flatten the curve, as I've been hearing these days.
Yeah, indeed. So, did you venture outside the house today at all?
No, not at all.
Yeah, I went out once. Well, as I mentioned to you right before the started, I went down to the liquor store because I'm worried they're going to be closing those. So I stocked up and ran into one of our jam friends down there. It was nice to catch up with him. And then I was right next door, so I went over to Denny's again, and now they've closed the dining area. It is delivered or carry out only.
Wow. So you couldn't even sit at the bar or anything?
No, they would let you inside. They let me inside to make my order. No, you couldn't sit. They wouldn't bring you a glass of water, and nothing like that. So it was a carry out only.
Wow, and that's the difference of 2 days.
Yeah, and this is just in Utah. We're not one of the heavily affected provinces yet, if you will.
Yeah.
So San Francisco is locking down. New York, they're doing exclusion zones. Italy, I mean, they're trapped in their apartments right now. So it's moving along, and further to that theme, Main Joe, I just got a text from Big Daddy's Pizza. Did you happen to get that text? Did you get that text?
No.
So now what they're doing is if you order online, or if you just call and place an order and pay for it by credit card, including tip, they will come and leave it on your doorstep, and then the driver will text you as they're driving away, saying your hot pizza's ready on your porch.
Good idea.
It is. That's innovative. People got to eat.
Another case of a business taking proactive measures. I tip my hat to them. That's awesome.
Well, and that's the right mix of capitalism and adapting to the situation and making sure people can still be fed. They had a special, a 14-inch large for $12, and that if this thing really goes south, then Big Daddy's might be the next Domino's.
They might do themselves okay, huh? They might come out of this with a good reputation and all that. I saw my sister sent out something that said that their local supermarket is reducing hours. And they claim it's because they're going to sanitize and stock shelves and stuff in those downtimes. Because it used to be a 24/7 supermarket, and now they're going to close from, I think, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. So that's a huge development. I wonder if our local supermarket's going to do that. I haven't been to the supermarket in probably over a week, and I'm getting close to needing to go again. And I have to tell you, I'm a little bit nervous about it. I'm going to try and go in off hours, probably late at night would be the best time for me to go. However, that might be when they're most picked over too. So I don't know. We'll have to see how it goes.
I think early morning.
Early morning sometimes it's busy though, because you get all those. That's usually when they stock the shelves and there's people in there shopping a little bit. So I think there's fewer people at night. Yeah. However, the selection might be better in the morning. So I'll have to try.
Well, I think they've had all night to sanitize and clean and get it ready. Like you said, when it's been picked over, you don't know who's been in there
all day.
They might have all day long.
That's a good point.
Same avocado you did. Yeah.
That's a good point. Yeah, because I do that. I pick up produce and put it back on the shelf if it's not quite up to my standards. So interesting point. Yeah, I might have to take your advice on that and go in the morning. That's not a bad idea.
Well, I've also heard that some supermarkets are now doing 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. You have to be 65 or older to get in there and shop, because that's the most vulnerable segment of our population.
Right.
And then it's open to everybody, after that.
Right.
So, here in the beautiful Salt Lake Valley, I think we've topped 80 cases now total. I'm not sure. So we're definitely on the luckier side, the more fortunate side.
Mm-hmm.
But, and, again, Main Joe, we should bring some facts and figures back into place here is people like you and me, relatively young and healthy and active, we don't have much to worry about. What we do have to worry is being a vector to more vulnerable people. Right. That's really our concern at this point.
Right.
I'm not concerned about myself so much, but if I somehow infected the 80-year-old grandma who lives 4 doors down, boy, would that be tough to live with. That would just be a devastating thing to happen.
It would be, yeah. I'm with you. I'm much more concerned about neighbors, family, friends than I am about myself, for sure. It's just kind of the way it is in general.
Yeah.
If I cut myself and bleed a little bit, it's no big deal. But if my daughter cuts herself and bleeds a little bit, I freak out. You know what I mean? It's different.
Yeah.
It's different.
Yeah. Well, my next door neighbor, he does my taxes every year, and every year I go to his house. He has a basement office, and it was only about 18 months ago, 2 years ago, where he had a daughter born very premature, many weeks premature. She was the size of a Barbie doll when she was born.
Wow!
And she's doing very well now. She seems to be doing great, but you still don't know if maybe her immune system is a little bit compromised, and my presence in his house could cause some havoc. So
some complications.
A lot of considerations.
Yeah, lots of them. Yeah, that's very true. Boy, and it's funny because some people still aren't taking it very seriously. It's like the president came out today, and apparently he's taking it a little more seriously in that he's saying basically it's try and what's the word? Try and limit group size. Don't gather in groups of 10 or more. It used to be 50 or more. Now it's 10 or more. And he also said that this self-isolation, social distancing that they're talking about could go through July or August. I was hoping for June, worst case scenario. Now they're talking July, August, worst case scenario.
Yeah. You raise a question I want to ask of you and our audience. Of course, we have never Trumpers out there, and we have lover Trumpers. It's pretty much two groups. There's very few people in between.
It seems that way. Yeah.
So, audience, what do you think about I don't know what was about a week ago when President Trump gave an address and said, well, we've got 15 cases in America right now, and pretty soon, I know I've heard we're going to have that down somewhere near zero. So essentially, he was just saying, calm down, everybody. This can be erratic. It's nothing to worry about. Go on about your lives. So, was he just trying to calm people down and make sure they didn't panic, or was he doing a major disservice to the American people by saying, go to the bars, go to the restaurants, go to the concerts. It's going to be near zero here pretty soon, so don't worry about it. That's just a question I want to ask. I really don't have, I have my opinion on it, but this isn't really a political opinion show, I guess.
I don't know. We always give our opinions. I feel like I'm not going to shy away from my opinion. I think they were unprepared, and they're kind of inept. They don't. Part of them, they're really concerned about the stock market. That's where most of their focus is right now. It's not so much on stemming the tide, flattening the curve. I mean, maybe it's more so now, but initially it was they didn't want the stock market to take a hit. Well, the stock market took a hit. It took a huge hit. And if we could just change gears slightly to the stock market, I was listening to Kyle Kalinske today, and he was doing a podcast or a show on just what the Fed's been trying to do with the stock market. And basically, they're just pumping money into it. That I didn't realize this, but he said they've been basically pumping money into it. I think he even referred to David Pakman, who's another guy I listen to occasionally. And Pakman had a graph where he showed where the Fed pumped in $500 billion into the stock market, and it propped it up for all of about 2 hours.
I saw that same graphic, the little blue circle.
$500 billion for 2 hours of jump in the stock market. Just crazy. So I really don't think they know what they're doing. whether it comes to advising us on what to do, go out to the bars, we have 15 cases, or, oh my gosh, the stock market's plunging, let's pump money into it to try and save it. They don't know what they're doing. They're just fumbling.
Yeah, good money after bad. Well, hopefully this will even us out a little bit, Joe, where, Obama, when he entered office, he pretty much continued the same path that George W. Bush started with the quantitative easing. The pump tons of money into the market, keep the dollars coming out of ATMs, all this type of stuff. Now, of course, Obama was condemned very strongly. And now the Trump administration is doing the same thing. The impetus for it is, of course, very different. We had a major housing crash in 2008, and now it's a pandemic. But the actions they're taking seem to be identical. How do you solve it?
Are they, though? Are they identical? Because when Obama bailed out the banks and he bailed out the auto industry, right? And from what I understand, they paid it all back. This is what I'm told. They paid it all back, Well, are we going to get paid back this money? I get the feeling that this money's different. This money is just down the drain. I don't think we're ever going to get this money back. I don't know. I don't know exactly what Kyle means by pumping money into the stock market. But I did hear that on Sunday, the Fed basically made the interest rate 0% in order to try and bolster the stock market again. Another, just wild ass, what are we going to do? Got to do something kind of thing to save our stock market. And they lowered the interest rate to 0% for banks. It's free money basically for them now. It's kind of crazy. And you're right, the bubble was there. The bubble was going to burst sooner or later. It just turned out to be the pandemic versus a housing bubble, or the fact that there's trillions of dollars in student loans out there, that might have been the bubble. But here it is, the pandemic is the thing that burst the bubble.
Well, that's a good point too, is the next downturn was going to happen. It's just when and what was the cause. That's something we can all pretty much agree on. It was bound to happen. I mean, we were riding high.
Yeah.
I mean, all the way through Obama and all the way through Trump, it's been on an uptick, just a constant upsurge.
Mm-hmm.
So, but now I'm hearing about they might start sending us all checks. I mean, Joe, have you heard some of this?
I heard Mitt Romney, of all people, was floating universal basic income as a solution to try and stem the tide as far as people, keeping them fed and everything.
Yeah. I've heard anything from $1,000 to $5,000 to, for every adult, and $500 for every kid you have. Who knows when or if or what it's going to wind up being. But, and that's where the federal government is flying blind.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need any help right now. I'm one of many who I don't need any assistance to get through this. I work from home anyway, so my paychecks are going to keep coming.
Mm-hmm.
But man, there's a sports bar in walking distance from my house. What are they doing now? What are the servers doing there?
Yes.
The wait staff at Denny's that I went to today,
mm-hmm.
there were 4 people working the place. They had 2 cooks, somebody to put the food in packages, and a lady up front to take your money.
Mm-hmm.
Where normally they've got 15, 20 servers in there busting around getting tips, making money.
Right.
So, that's where the Fed's blind. The federal government is blind. How do they know that Mojo doesn't need the cash, but boy, Teresa down there at Denny's, she really does? How can they possibly achieve this?
Yeah, the only politician I know of that's even mentioning that is Bernie Sanders. At the debate the other night, he kind of brought that up. He was like, what about the people that have to stay home because their kids are now home, because the schools are closed? How are we going to deal with childcare and people not being able to work for whatever reason,
mm-hmm.
whether they're social distancing or whether their kids are at home and they have to be home? It could get ugly real fast. And if they're talking doing this for June, July, August, I mean, I might need help at some point. As of now, I'm okay, but my resources aren't going to last forever.
Yeah, I hear you, man.
I'm basically digging into my retirement right now,
Oh, wow. Yeah. So everybody's being affected differently. There's no doubt, and we have to. I have to just sit back and say I'm one of the lucky ones. I can ride this out. I can work from home.
Well, I hope. I mean, the situation's fluid. Things can change rapidly, dude. Enjoy it while you can. I hope it continues to remain employed and everything. That would be the best case scenario, right?
Yes, indeed. Yeah. Well, and another interesting point too is, that I work 2 jobs, and talking with Baseman down at the liquor store today, he says, "Well, I thought you were down in Key West. What are you doing here?" He called it Key Weird. I thought you were in Key Weird. And I told him I work from home, and I've been on some of the remote live webcams that, like on Duval Street and Green Street and Mallory Court and all these places. It is a ghost town. It is a graveyard right now. And so they're suffering down there too right now.
Interesting. I had to bring my daughter to school on Monday so she could pick up some things from her teachers and that. And the roads weren't all that empty. I was a little bit surprised. The traffic seemed about normal.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah.
I mean,
when I was out and about today. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, a lot of people aren't taking it too seriously yet. Even Rogan was talking the other day that at the comedy clubs, they were packed on, I think he was saying Sunday night or Friday night or something like that. He said at first people were touching elbows and not shaking hands and stuff, but after a while he said they were hugging and shaking hands and all that, just like nothing was different, and that could come back to bite them. I don't know. It's interesting. I mean...
Well, again, there it goes back to the statistics on it. Is someone like me, a single man living at home by myself, and I can go out to the bars and concerts, and I can hug and handshake and all that. Because if the virus spreads, it spreads to me, and that's it. I don't have an elderly mom living with me, and I don't interact with susceptible people. So if I get it, I'm the only one who's going to get it. But many other people are out there doing this stuff, and they have obviously come in contact with numerous other people.
You come home from the bar, and then you go do your taxes, I mean, you turn around at the bar, and you're going out the door at the bar, and you shake hands with someone you haven't seen in a while, and they have an elderly parent they're taking care of at home or something. You just don't know. You just don't know. That's why I wish my daughter would take this a little more seriously. Yeah, she's like, I'm not going to die from it. I'm young. Da 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 da. Well, yeah, but you can still carry it. You can still spread it. So it's a little bit frustrating for me that I can't get across to her that this is pretty serious stuff.
Well, and it comes down to one of my favorite statements from our friend Dojo. As I remember, I was around Dojo and his family while his kids were growing up, and he would, kind of as an admonishment, he would say that he would repeat the same sentence to his kids over and over, and even to my son sometimes, say it's not all about you. And that's what we're having trouble getting in the heads of a lot of people. It's not about you. It's who you come in contact with. It's who you're going to affect.
Right.
That's what it's about. So
who did a good job of explaining that, I think, and maybe I'll forward his video to my daughter, is John Oliver. He came out with the Coronavirus Part 2. I don't know if you've seen that yet, but he does a really good job of explaining that and saying, look, I know 97% of people are going to survive this, and it's not a big deal. However, we got to flatten that curve. I mean, Kyle Kalinske has a doctor friend in New York, and he was saying New York's already getting overrun with patients. They're already having to make these tough decisions as to who to treat and who not to treat. He was basically saying right now there are no elective procedures in New York. They're just trying to treat the people that are coming in sick. So the system in New York is already showing strain. They have a coronavirus test, but it takes 72 hours. So you show up at the hospital sick, wanting a test to know if it's coronavirus or not. You got to wait 72 hours before you know. What are they supposed to do? Send you back home out into the world and not knowing, or keeping you at the hospital in 72 hours until they know for sure? It's kind of really, really tough situation.
Well, I was watching a clip on YouTube, an interview with a gentleman in Italy, and he obviously worked for the Italian government. Forgive me, Mangio, I cannot remember his title, but he was obviously very well educated in infectious diseases and spreads, pandemics. And he said something that was very sobering and chilling, I'll say, that he's saying, right, that now Italy, being so heavily hit, they are now looking at, I want to say this delicately because it's such a macabre thing.
Yeah.
They are starting to look at prioritizing people most likely to survive and giving them the care.
Yeah.
And he gave examples. He's saying, okay, an 83-year-old man comes in and needs a ventilator. We put him on a ventilator. But then a 70-year-old man comes in and needs a ventilator. Well, the 70-year-old is more likely to survive. So we take the 83-year-old man off the ventilator and put the but then a 56-year-old man comes in and needs the ventilator. So that they're starting to look at ways that they might have to prioritize. You know, statistically, who's more likely to survive? We only have so many ventilators.
Yep, and it sounds like New York City isn't that far behind.
Let's hope it gets stemmed. That's all we can hope for.
Flatten that curve. Yep, absolutely. That's what we're hoping for.
Yeah.
We don't want to create more panic, but we just want to be smart. We want to be prudent. We want to try and get the point across. You know, Kyle's doctor friend also said that he's seen 18-year-olds come in and 24-year-olds coming in that need help breathing. So I know you think you're kind of indestructible, Mojo. You're a healthy, happy dude.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. I am right now. I feel as good as Donovan Mitchell.
But I don't think this virus is going to be too particular. Got to be careful.
Yeah. Well, something, a question I would like answered, I don't know if you've educated yourself on this. I sure haven't. Is the concept of terminus, the terminal. How did these, like swine flu, SARS, H1N1, that might have been the same as swine flu. I don't know. The Spanish flu that killed 50 million people back in 1918.
Yeah.
Where's the terminus for these? Do they finally just go away? Do we finally flatten the curve enough where the last coronavirus or COVID-19 is going to die, and then we just don't have to worry about it anymore? And how do we know? How do we ride? We know they exist. SARS and Ebola aren't near the threat that they were back in their peak, and so they had some terminus. How do we define those? What brings those about?
That is,
I'm not asking you to answer.
No, that's a very, very good question. Yeah, I think they run their course. Now, whatever that means, I don't know what that means either, but I've heard that before. Or Kyle suggested that, you'll build up an immunity, and that's why another reason why this one's so scary is that we haven't built up any immunity to this. Our defenses are not in place for this because it's new.
The little I know about evolution by natural selection, to build up an immunity takes years, decades, hundreds of years, generation after generation.
Yeah, so the flu, for example.
Yeah. And so I just can't imagine that humanity built up an immunity to Ebola. And that's why we don't see any cases, or we don't see, forgive me there, Ebola is still out there. Please know, Ebola is still out there. But it just is not making headlines because it's not killing as many people as it used to.
Right. It doesn't spread as easily. So, if it kills its host that fast before the host can spread it, then the virus just dies with the host.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We just talked about that prior to the podcast.
In that case, yeah.
The two factors. For Ebola, that was a unique one in that it did not spread as easily as COVID-19. But when it did spread, it killed its host so quickly that it didn't have a chance to spread to another host.
Right.
So, yeah.
That's why this coronavirus thing is so scary, because it kills at a greater rate than the flu, and it spreads as easily as the flu.
Yeah.
That's why what we're experiencing is different than anything we've experienced before.
Yeah, very true. Yeah. Well, on a bright spot, I like to look at other cheerful YouTube clips about how people are coping.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw one today. You might have saw this same clip. It's been viral. It's been viewed millions of times already. And this is in Italy, where they're essentially on lockdown. If you leave the house, you're going to the pharmacy or the grocery store, and that's it.
Right.
And so it showed some clusters of apartment buildings, downtown. I don't know where it was, Milan or somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And the people would, around just after dinner time every night, they get out on their porch, their patio, their deck on these high-rise buildings. One tambourine, one will have a violin, one will have a trumpet, and they just start playing cool Italian music. And then you see like pretty much every other porch of these apartment buildings, there's somebody out there, and they're making music and making the best. They're not making light of the situation, but they're making the best of it. So, that's where we are.
I saw a brief clip on that. I haven't seen a good clip of that. If you have a good clip, I'd love it if you could send it to me. Because what I heard is I saw, a brief clip of this guy and this woman, and they had the guitar and they were leaning out the window and they were singing with smiles on, and they said they were in Italy, but I couldn't hear the music they were playing. And then some comedian compared it to, I think it was Colbert, compared it to, well, what's surging in America right now are people are buying guns and ammo. And in Italy, they're singing songs, and in America, we're buying guns and ammo.
Yeah, there's a statement.
Which kind of goes back to that little rant I went on last podcast, where it's like we're just in that Wild West mentality here, man. It's for everybody for himself kind of thing, and it's a little bit sad. And maybe that'll turn around. I mean, I've seen lots of posts, as I scroll down after some of the videos I watch, people are supporting each other and saying good luck and thoughts and prayers and all that kind of stuff. So there is some community that's kind of there, but
Stephen Colbert last night, his show, late show or late night with Stephen Colbert, he did it from home in his bathtub. Did you happen to see any clips of that?
Yeah, I think that's where I got the guns and ammo thing from, was that clip from him.
Yes, yeah. So, and he said, now, wait a minute. You can't shoot the virus.
Yeah, that's exactly, that was it.
It was pretty comical. But, again, you've mentioned the thing is some whacked out people start thinking, okay, pandemic's here. They're going to start coming for my toilet paper and my pork and beans, and they're going to want to share space in my bunker. So it is. I don't know.
I don't know either. Well, hopefully that's just.
What else is? Yeah.
I just hope that's the exception and not the rule. So I'll when I go out to the grocery store, I'll come back and give you a report on how that went, and if you go out, do the same. You said the liquor store was pretty full, pretty hopping.
Oh well, let me give some perspective.
You said there was a line, right?
Well, it wasn't just a line. It was a snake with lots of coils going around the aisleways, everywhere. And
okay.
The perspective I want to give is I got there about 2 to 4 minutes after the liquor store opened.
Wow.
And I walk in, and then it opened at 11 a.m., and I was there at 11:04, and the line was already. If you stretch it out in a straight line, I'll bet that line was 150 yards long.
Wow.
It was amazing. And that's where I saw a spaceman.
Mm-hmm.
He got in line about 5 people behind me. And I let those people go ahead, and then he and I sat and just chatted for about 35 minutes and get through this line.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. And again, it was 4 minutes. So if I had gotten there 10 minutes before they opened, the lines would have been outside the locked doors.
Wow.
There must have been just crowds of people waiting to get in there.
So after you were leaving, there was a line forming to get in?
No. The line was still inside the store.
Oh, okay.
But what I was saying is if I had arrived there before they opened, there would have been lines outside the store.
Yeah, that makes sense, because there was so many people in there when you got to the checkout, and you knew exactly what you wanted. You probably didn't waste any time getting to the checkout. So was that today or yesterday? When did that happen?
This morning. Yeah,
okay.
11 o'clock this morning.
And did they have any signs up that said they were going to be reducing hours or closing or anything like that?
No signs like that. I spoke with one of the employees there about whether the DABC has any plans to close, and he said no.
Okay.
I haven't heard of anything, and I really don't think they will.
Yeah. In some ways, Utah is moving a little bit slower than some of the other states. I think I have a brother-in-law lives up in Logan, and I don't think they've closed their schools yet. But in Minnesota, they have. My brother called me the other day and said they were closing the schools and going online. And he's in a small town, and they don't have the resources that people that live in cities have. I mean, he's got internet, but not super fast, and even the school itself doesn't seem to be quite up to par, or they're not in the know as far as how to run school online. Because they were asking them questions, what do you have access to? So they're going to try and figure out what kind of program or apps to use to teach the classes and whatnot. And so the question was worded something like this: you have access to Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, Microsoft PowerPoint, Microsoft this, Microsoft that, or other. It's like every single thing was Microsoft, and all those cost money. My brother doesn't have any of that. He's not going to pay Microsoft $400 for Microsoft Office or the $20 a month subscription that they want now, or maybe it's more, maybe it's less. But yeah, it's just kind of it's got to be frustrating for him, I don't know what some of these smaller towns are probably going to be hit harder than some of the cities where they have the resources. Like my daughter for the last 2 days have been in online school, and she's kind of liking it. She's grooving to it, She's got her little set up. She's cleaned off her desk finally after 2 years of junking it up, and she's hanging in there. She's doing well.
Well, you make me want to ask another question. What has the federal government and, of course, the Trump administration, what have they done well and what have they not done well since this, was first reported, a month and a half, 2 months ago? It was in January, I think, when the first cases appeared. And so, what have they done well and not done so well, in your opinion?
Well, I wish I had more info on that. Like I said in the last podcast, one of the people I listened to, they had a list of like 15 things where the Trump administration really screwed the pooch. But the biggest thing that stands out to me is that, let's see if I can find it here. I tried to take some notes because Kyle was talking. John Bolton and the Trump administration let go of pandemic experts in 2018. So long before this happened, Trump comes in there and he was trying to undo everything Obama. And he fired a lot of experts and a lot of career people that were in these important positions that regulated and watched over things, but because they were appointed by Obama or whatever, he got rid of a lot of them. And I guess John Bolton and Trump let go of the pandemic experts in 2018. And so that's one of the reasons why they've stumbled so hard when this came up.
They didn't have, and the team he let go, which, by the way, he denied in a press conference. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, I did see that.
I don't know who let them go. Tony, do you know who let them go?
Yep,
It wasn't me.
I saw that same clip.
That. Yeah. But anyway, the point I'm trying to arrive there, excuse me, I got a hiccup there, is that these pandemic teams, like you said, they don't just monitor and regulate and oversee. What they're charged doing, going to work every day. You might go 5 years without an outbreak like this.
Mm-hmm.
But, in that interim, they just come up with all kinds of plans, dozens and dozens of different plans. Okay, what if it's a flu outbreak and it starts here and then it spreads quick? Okay, and then we've got plan 1, plan 2, plan 3. We can, and then what if it's a respiratory thing? What if it's a bioterrorism attack? That's all they do all day long. They're a think tank. They just say, okay, if it comes out and it starts here and it spreads this quickly, this is what we got to do. Right. And he dismissed that team. He dismissed that entire team. And, I'm not going to say it's going to decimate America. I mean, but it probably would have helped to have that team intact when coronavirus began back in January.
Yeah, I got to believe it would.
Would you agree?
Yeah, I agree totally. I think it crippled us. I think it hurt us. I think Obama was really, really good about getting good people in there. Like the guy he had negotiate the Iran treaty with was like a nuclear physicist. He knew his shit, you know?
Yeah,
Obama didn't put hacks into these positions. He never, ever did. Because he had people that wanted to work for him. He was inspiring. He instilled hope in people. Trump, not the case, man. And you know, Trump has fired a lot of Obama's people, and he does not replace them because partly because no one wants to work for him. I mean, would you? I wouldn't want to work for him. And so he has all these temporary people. He has all these acting people. And there's another list out there. I don't have it in front of me, but there's like 48 positions where he's got acting people in charge of these departments or whatever. I'm sure they're doing their best, but you know, they're not the cream of the crop, top-notch people.
Well, I do have to disagree with you there, though. I'd love to work for Trump.
Oh, yeah?
That's the easiest job on the planet.
Well, as long as I could do what he does and not take responsibility for anything, I guess that would be all right. Just collect my check and go home.
Well, no.
You know?
You can't do what he does. No. There's only one Trump. Anybody who works for him, you want to keep your job, just go on camera, make a fool out of yourself, and kiss his ass, and then collect your $128,000 a year.
Kiss his ass. Did you see that ass kisser award that Bill Maher handed out the other day to Mike Pence?
Yeah, I did. I did see that.
That was so funny. Oh my goodness, what an ass kisser.
Hope Hicks was the previous winner. Who was the current one?
What do you mean?
I forget now. The previous winner of the ass kisser of the year was Hope Hicks. And then he just awarded it to somebody else.
Oh, Mike Pence. It was Mike Pence, the vice president.
Okay.
Yeah. It was so funny. He was just praising him on camera. It was just hilarious. Something else I saw that kind of cracked me up is, I guess, Trump, I almost said hump. That's funny. Trump was exposed or came in close proximity to the virus in Mar-a-Lago, I guess. So he got tested and he assured everybody he was not, you know, he passed the test. He wasn't infected or whatever. So he holds this press conference and then he touches the microphone like 31 times and he pats people on the back and he was shaking hands and just not doing anything right. That was just too funny.
Yeah.
What a lump. Man.
Well, it's not bothering President Trump, and it shouldn't bother us, I guess, is the message there, right?
But on the other hand, he was the one that came out, I think it was today or yesterday, that said, let me see if I can get the wording right. I'm sorry, I'm just going to pause for a second here while I dial this up. So basically, I think it was Trump who came out and said that they're discouraging gathering in groups of 10 or more.
Yeah.
So the administration is officially coming out and saying that. And I think San Francisco is one of the few places in the country that has officially gone into lockdown mode where, you know, only go out if you're needing food or meds or, you know, that kind of thing. It's got to be necessary kind of thing. I think there's six counties in San Francisco area that are doing that. But isn't that essentially what he's saying? I mean, don't gather in groups of 6 or more. That's pretty much lockdown mode. I mean, just about every job I've ever had, there are more than 6 people in the office, right?
Well, and that puts our jam sessions at risk.
Yeah,
man.
exactly.
We'll get 10, 12 musicians in the same room. Fine space.
Yep.
You know, and this is where I got to feel some sympathy for some of these local officials. You know, the governor of, like the mayor of San Francisco or the governor of California, many of them have some tough choices to make.
Yeah.
And if they come out like Italy and say quarantine, if you're out on the street and, you know, you're not going to the grocery store or pharmacy and we catch you again an hour later, you might have to go to jail or get a fine or something. So how do these local officials here in America come out with something similar to that without calling it martial law? You know? They call it a lockdown and a self-isolate, a shelter in place. There's a lot of names for it, but they're essentially saying, don't come out, because if you do, you might suffer some ramifications from the state.
But if you don't,
it's a tough.
You could suffer ramifications because you can't pay your bills, you can't pay your rent. I mean, Kyle was talking a lot about in the show I watched this morning about We need an emergency pause button, man. We need to just say, oh, pause. We've got a pandemic. Everyone stop what you're doing. Don't you, you don't collect rent. You don't, the utility bills are okay for now, and stock market, no more trading. It kind of makes sense in a way. I don't know how that would work or how you would instigate that, but man, it sure seems like we need something like that, because the stock market tanking like that, and people needing to pay rent and feed their families and stuff, and there's nothing, there's no relief. You're just swinging in the breeze. It's like, this could be beyond any depression or recession we've ever seen. I mean, we need a pause button. I kind of agree with them. I just don't know how that would work.
Yeah, exact. That's the sympathy I have for them. What do they call it? The Governor Newsom can't come out and say, okay, martial law. If you're caught outside your house, you're going to jail. You can't be that blunt. You can't be that. Well,
that's what I'm trying to say. You can't do that and then not say, and we're not going to. Your landlords can't kick you out. You can't pay rent. That's okay. We're going to put a pause on all that stuff. You can't declare martial law and not let people work or whatever, and then say that, oh, we're going to still charge you rent. We're still going to charge you this and charge you that. So I'm glad that they're at least talking about or floating the idea of universal basic income, because if they can pump $2.7 trillion into the stock market to try and keep it floating, then what about the people? What about some relief for an everyday guy, the average Joe, right?
Yeah, man, good points. It's now, it's unsettled times we live in.
Yeah.
But, I hate to say this, they're kind of exciting times.
I feel you there, dude. I feel you. This is it's not knowing. It's kind of exciting in a weird, surreal way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
and I say that because I know that I'm one of the people very unlikely to suffer any major. Certainly not financially and physically. I'm in one of those categories where I most likely, even if I do contract it, I most likely don't have to worry. But
that's true.
That video.
Oh, go ahead.
That video you shared with me, showing the infection rates, that was astounding. I wish we could share it with our entire audience right now.
Yeah, I will put that link in the description box below. Because it really helped me to see how it compares to those other pandemics, those other viruses, and how they spread compared to how this spreads. There's not a lot of data left yet because this is so new. But what it did show us was alarming.
Well, and it was February 20th, I want to say, when COVID-19 skyrocketed, and it went above all the other lines on the graph. It became the one. And again, listeners, that's not death rates or number of people infected. It's the growth pretty much over in how it all comes back to how easily this is transmitted. We haven't seen something like this. I don't know when. I guess flu in 1918. That had a transmission rate that was just off the charts. And that's what we're in here with COVID-19.
And to get back to the other thing we were talking about, how this is kind of exciting in a weird way, part of that might be because, the system was messed up. And I think everyone can kind of feel that. Everyone kind of knows that. It's one of the reasons why Trump got elected, is because people were like, hell, what do we got to lose? Let's throw a stick of dynamite in there and see if we can shake things up and make things better somehow. Yeah. It didn't work out the way they hoped, but I could see why they might think that, because he was talking a good story, health care for all. It's going to be better than Obama's. And, he talked it up, man. People bought it.
Everybody's going to be covered on day one. Yeah. First thing when I get in, everybody's covered day one.
Right. Yeah. So now we've got this pandemic shaking things up. So maybe if we all come together, we can create the country, the world we want to live in, where people have health care. There is a universal basic income. There is plans in place for when pandemics spring up, because this is not going to be the last one. What kind of world do we want to live in? We should start thinking about that now as we go forward, as we make contingency plans for the worst and hope for the best. What are we hoping for? Let's hope for a better world where healthcare is a right, not a privilege, and universal basic income is there. And, how far would that go to getting the homeless off the streets? If everyone had a basic income, I mean, we could take care of a lot of issues if we come together and can agree on some of these things and come up with an idea, a plan, or a vision for what we want in the future.
Yeah, and then we say, well, why is your vision better than mine? And well, you want everybody to think the same, and the same tired arguments that always come out. But I kind of went on a tangent there, Main Show. I wanted to bring up Joe Biden really quick.
Okay.
On the Medicare for all, like you just said, we could sure use it right now, couldn't we? Would you agree?
Right.
That I wonder how many people in America are starting to feel symptoms that they've contracted COVID-19. They're starting to feel symptoms, but oh man, I can't go see a doctor because I'll get a $1,200 bill next week, and I just can't afford it.
Yep.
How many people is that happening to in America? And how many people is that happening to in Italy right now?
Right.
Or Denmark or Sweden and all this. So Joe Biden in the debate last night, did you happen to catch any of that? I didn't watch it, but I saw some clips of it.
Me too. Yeah, just clips. Yeah, I saw some of that.
And Kyle Kalinske, Joe Biden on stage saying, well, Medicare for all is not the answer. I mean, they have socialized medicine in Italy, and it's doing nothing to stop this. It's not helping at all. And it was one of the most ignorant things I've ever seen. I honestly thought for a moment it was Trump up there behind the podium.
Yeah.
Telling me something that made me think, what do you take me for? Trump or Biden, what do you take me for?
Yeah.
It was pathetic. And then, in the same response, he went on to say that, but if anybody has COVID-19, you get tested for free, you get treatment for free, you get to stay in the hospital for free. So he's essentially saying, Medicare for all.
We do need it. Exactly. I couldn't believe that. I was like, you just contradicted yourself in the same damn paragraph, man. It's like... Yeah. And man, Bernie did not capitalize on it either. Not as much as he could have. Yeah. Well, he had a standard response, but he could have done better. He could have said something like that. I said, you just got done telling me that everything's paid for. That's basically what I'm advocating for, but all year round, not just when we have these pandemics going on, Yeah. If Spanish flu happens in 5 years, well, then that's covered. Under Biden, we'll cover you for that. But you get in a car wreck or you get cancer, no, Medicare for all is not cancer. It was frustrating. Yeah, very frustrating. Yeah. But, and the thing that amazed me probably more than anything is that Biden actually came across as cognitive, or, he didn't show that cognitive decline that Kyle Kalinske and others have been talking about. He got through the debate without gaffes and without being just totally off the rails, which surprised me and probably surprised a lot of people. Did it surprise you? It did. There was only, of the clips I've seen, there was only one time where I thought I saw him slip. And it wasn't while he was speaking. It's while he was listening to a question coming from the moderator. And I swear I saw his eyes kind of glaze and his mouth dropped open slightly. And I think at that point, he had the awareness to go back to a scripted answer. Okay, I know where she's going with this, and I know what I'm already going to say. So, but overall, I agree. He didn't show that same type of, I don't want to overstate it, but that same type of decline that we've been seeing in some of the clips. So I was reading a lot of comments after some of those clips, and a lot of people are saying, "Oh, he's on Adderall, just like Trump now." They pumped him full of drugs before he went out there. Look at the size of his pupils and all that. And I don't know if that's the case. But I don't know what that means. I mean, maybe he has food poisoning. And Rogan talks about Adderall a lot, because Rogan's pretty convinced that Trump is on Adderall, and a lot of people in the comments are pretty convincing in some of their arguments as to why they think he's on Adderall as well. All that sniffing he does, how sometimes he's sharp and other times he's slurry and slow. So maybe they did pump Biden full of stuff. I don't know. But he sure didn't come across like he does a lot of times. So it's interesting. I don't know. Well, he had some energy. He did energy last night. I was glad to see that. And Main Joe, I'm not going to spill any beans here, but maybe to our audience, that
I'm voting blue no matter who.
Right.
I don't care
Mm-hmm.
if Dems run as president. I'm voting against the current, against the, and I just really hope it's not Biden. I'd rather see pretty much any other candidate. Gabbard, Buttigieg, Warren, Sanders. I'd rather see pretty much anybody else.
Yeah, you know.
Where do you fall on that?
Yeah, I mean, if Buttigieg was still in it, or if Klobuchar was in it, I might do the blue no matter who. But being that it's Biden, I'm not quite in that camp. I just can't quite do it. And then part of that is because I'm in Utah, and there's no way the Democrats are going to win Utah anyway, so I'm not too worried about it. But I'm still in the Bernie or bust camp. That's kind of where I'm at right now. I'll write them in if I can. I want to let the Democratic Party know. Look, I'm not going to vote blue no matter who. And you put up people like this for the nomination. I mean, Biden has a terrible record. He said he would veto Medicare for all. He voted for the war in Iraq. He voted for overthrowing the Syrian government. He's a neocon, Democrat, corporate, elitist. The first thing he did after he declared he was running for president is have a big pharmaceutical fundraiser. You know, he's in bed with all these people that need regulation, and we need to redo this somehow.
Well, you know, Joe, would that be the reason the DNC is so behind Joe Biden?
Mm-hmm.
Because they're so dependent on these billionaire corporations to make donations and keep them afloat.
Yeah.
You know, you and I have talked. Go ahead.
I don't think they're going to let Bernie win it. I mean, in order for Bernie to win it, he would have to just overwhelm them with his support, and he's just not able to do that. So the DNC is, they're stacking everything against him, just like they did when Hillary was running the DNC. And it's just, saddens me because Bernie was essentially trying to take it over, basically. He was hoping he would come up with enough people, a big enough revolution that he could take over the Democrats. But he couldn't do it. A lot of people say he should have ran as an independent. Well, but then that gets so tough to get on the ballot in all 50 states and things like that. He had to make a call. Do I run as an independent and maybe be a spoiler and put Trump in office that way, or do I try and take over the Democratic Party? And he went with the Democratic Party option, and he just doesn't have quite enough support.
That's the part that confuses me so much. Why doesn't he have the support of people who would benefit, obviously, over a Sanders presidency versus a Biden, and certainly versus a Trump presidency?
I don't get it either.
I don't understand it. I don't get it. But again, I'm going blue no matter who.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to cast my vote to defeat President Trump, and I don't care if it's Lyle Menendez running this. Well, that's a bad example, but it's not the
Labrador puppy.
The most important election ever. What was that, Minju?
Oh, you said Lyle Menendez. Maybe a Labrador puppy would have been a better thing to use for that.
Yeah, that would have been much better indeed. But anyway, it's shaping up to be, well, let's say it's an interesting spring and summer.
Yep.
And then, if statistics hold true, I think by, late May, June, we won't be hearing so much of COVID-19 in the headlines anymore.
Yeah,
Then we're focused on the election.
Yeah. I was really hoping it'd be a 2-week thing, and now it's looking more like 3 or 4 weeks and maybe even more. I think 3 or 4 weeks at this point might be the best case scenario.
Yeah.
Of social distancing and, kids being out of school and, and sports being canceled and all that.
Yeah. I feel so sympathetic to the people who are just going to be, they're going to be devastated, really suffer, deaths in the family or long illnesses or financial hardships. I feel for them.
Yeah.
But I also kind of feel that, little hiccups like this are kind of, when history looks back, you kind of look at how did humanity respond.
Mm-hmm.
Think of major earthquakes or volcanic eruptions or hurricanes or other outbreaks. The massive devastation, massive suffering. And I'm not comparing COVID to COVID-19 to any of these other things, but
right.
Just when we look back, and how did humanity respond? From the wet markets of Asia to the capital of the United States. How did we all respond? And it's I don't know if I want to say growing. I'm not a religious person, so I don't want to say that God did this for the best. It was for the better. That's nonsense. But things like this have happened and will happen, and we're going through one of them now.
And can we learn from it? Can we come out of it with a new vision, a better come out of it with a better world? Like hurricane areas. Do they make laws that say, look, your house has to be hurricane proof, or at least hurricane resistant? And then the people that live there have to prepare for them. They have to have evacuation plans, and they have to have a store of food and something in case they can't evacuate. I had an aunt who had a place in Louisiana in the Gulf of Mexico, and they built their house on stilts, right? They knew the water could come. They prepared for it. They did what they could to keep their house above the waves. What are we going to do to keep our house above the waves before the next pandemic hits, after we get out of this one?
Yeah, that was something that you mentioned, houses on stilts, and I saw a lot of that down in Key West.
Mm-hmm.
And in the city of Key West, but off the main island, over to Stock Island, and the little cottage that I rent is right on the water.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you walk out my kitchen, there's the Pacific, or there's the Atlantic Ocean, and it is not on stilts. I mean, the water rises 5 feet. My kitchen is flooded, but across the street from me are homes that look newer than where I live, and they're on 12-foot stilts with a big old stairway going up to the living area.
Yeah,
and that stuff's happened before. It's going to keep happening, and it kind of makes me wonder why these seaside cottages and homes are right there at Granite Sea.
Well,
and 80 feet behind them, you got homes on 12-foot stilts.
Well, these cottages are still there, though. I'm guessing that they're probably built out of cinder blocks, or they're built like brick shithouses kind of thing. There's very little that can really be damaged. If the winds come howling through there and the doors and windows go and the carpet's ruined, well, you just clean it all out, hose it down with bleach, and then put new doors and windows on it. Maybe that's the case in that situation.
That's it. This thing is cinder block, dude, all the way around, and it's got a metal roof.
Yeah.
So it's
about as indestructible as you can make it, and make it on land level.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, I'm guessing that's what the deal
you
is.
need an earthquake to open up a fissure in the earth for this thing to fall before it would.
Yeah.
But,
all right, Mojo. What? You have something else? I was going to wrap it up. We're approaching an hour here. I think we'll probably.
Are we all ready?
Yeah, I think we'll probably do another one in a couple of days, as this situation remains fluid, and there'll probably be more to talk about. And I'll try and keep notes so I can have a little more facts on the ground for our listeners and for you.
Well, I do the same. Yeah. When you texted me, I was at the liquor store spaceman, and started thinking, cool. Yeah, there's a lot more to talk about. There's a lot of things covered here.
I couldn't believe how much it changed,
Mm-hmm. And then next 2 days, we'll see if the NBA comes back. We'll see if we start seeing. Here's another graph thing. Is right now, in pretty much every country except China and South Korea, we're still seeing positive increases on the graph in new cases every day.
Yeah. China
and South Korea, they've seen a decrease in new cases every day. They're still seeing new cases every day, but it looks like it's peaked, plateaued, and it's going the other side.
Right.
So let's hope that we can, next time we get together, tomorrow, Thursday, Friday, let's hope that we can say the same about America.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping.
We're seeing Yeah.
We're obviously
fewer new cases.
We're obviously taking action. We're obviously doing things. We're stocking up. We're staying home. We're what's the word? Social distancing is the word they like to use, and flattening the curve is the other term I hear a lot now. So hopefully we're doing enough of those things, and we'll have good news next time, and we'll make this as short as possible, and we will thrive and survive and prepare for the next one, and have a better society,
And then we will have another jam session to make society better.
Yes.
And maybe this Saturday, too, if you're able. Main Joe, think you can jam with us on Saturday?
If there's 10 or fewer, if my wife and I have a conversation and I'm not part of the infectious spread, how do you say that? The something vector, you say? I want to be part of the solution, not be part of the problem. And so next time, people, thanks for listening.
The Two Joes, thank you very much. And Main Joe, thanks for doing another session.
You bet. The Two Joes podcast will be back in a couple days to kind of keep you up to what's going on and what's changing.
We'll talk to you soon.